This episode is sponsored by Pazuzu.
I'll see you over there then.
I like that guy.
Holloway, don't move a muscle.
Get me some protection too.
Holy God, look at that art style. Check out those mushy character models and drab backgrounds. That's right, people, we're looking at a holdover from Season 1, an episode that was produced for the first season but was held back until now. It's hardly noticeable in syndication as the episodes air out of order constantly, and I do believe that this episode was included in the Season 1 DVD sets, but doing my little marathon of King of the Hill on Hulu and their whole catalog does make this one feel a little lumpy and out of order. This sort of production kerfuffle never would have happened in one of my Japanese animes, which always holds itself to the highest standards of quality.
Looked as though their fist fight could have gone on forever.
But in all seriousness, let's talk about something that I've had long discussions with your mother about, that being weeaboos. Sometimes, when someone watches a lot of movies or TV or reads a bunch of comics, they start to believe that the representations being shown in those fictional pieces of media are a reflection of real-life cultures or attitudes. In the worst and most extreme cases, an overindulgence of media appreciation can become an outright fetishization. I don't think that's a word. Why did I write that? Fetish, leading to the dreaded ultimate cringe.
I love sushi.
I love Japan, period.
The tea ceremonies. J-Rock! Yeah.
Garuga mess!
Oh, yeah.
I love anime!
Yeah. And manga!
And gaming!
Oh, DDR!
Smiley K!
Hey! Garuga mess!
Don't just talk about it. Check out Sakura-con.
Those obsessed with Japan and the surface level of Japan culture are called weeaboos, who believe Japan to be some sort of sexy wonderland instead of the workaholic, often xenophobic, and intensely repressed nation that it is. And since King of the Hill is considered by some to be an American anime, it feels appropriate that our Texas boys would encounter the equivalent of some lily-white jagoffesaur who uses the term moe to describe a pillow.
Mr. Holloway?
Is a prom dress tight after a six-pack? Which way do you Cadillac?
However, as we endure this man's behaviors for this episode, I want to say that I'm actually really glad that he is like this. Much like with Junie Harper and John Redcorn, this guy's crappy behavior is intentionally crafted, and I think it kinda misses the point of the episode to try to fix this fellow and say, hey, you're actually doing this wrong, you shouldn't be doing that. It's like, well, obviously. Sometimes we reviewers, and I'm guilty of it too, will fall into this trap of shaking our fists angrily and saying, why is this person so awful? Ugh, I hate them, why can't they just be nice? Without taking a second to realize, oh yeah, if this character wasn't shitty, then what conflict would be left in the story? Where would this even go? What would we be left to do or overcome? If Light didn't use the Death Note, then we wouldn't even have a series to talk about. If Cartman took a giant chill pill, then we would lose countless moments of just black-hearted joy.
Oh, you guys, you're not gonna believe it. What? Guess what I have sitting in my backyard? A trampoline? Better. A boat? Better. A better. Well, what, Cartman?
Garuga mess!
Don't just talk about it. Check out Sakura-con, April 10 through 12. Check sakuracon.org for all the details.
But let's also acknowledge that there are right ways and wrong ways to use frustrating characters, at least in my opinion. In the later seasons, King of the Hill occasionally makes stories where the Hill family, mostly Hank, are just suffering the whole time. There isn't much of an escalation to the irritation, meaning that the audience is kept at the same level of just being mad or pissed off until the episode finally relents and just allows the torture to stop. Thankfully, this episode is smart enough to know that you can't go full throttle with the jackassery right from the start. It is so much more effective and better paced if we're introduced to an uneasy new normal and then get slowly dragged downhill instead of just being chucked into the bog of misery right from the get-go. Want to see what I'm talking about? Well, let's get into it, shall we?
What do you suppose the Holloways look like?
You know those Boston types, probably small, pale, and wearing penny loafers.
We begin with a scene that could very well take place during the same day as Peggy's sex ed class, with Bobby hanging out at Strickland Propane to learn more about his #1 hero, his dad. But holy crap, hold the presses, my sussies. This is where, finally, we are introduced to Hank's boss, Buck Strickland, and what an introduction it is.
15 years, I promoted him 15 times, all the way to assistant manager. You should be proud, son. You're his seed.
I'm my daddy's seed.
In this first appearance, he might as well just be a clone of the US President Lyndon Johnson, who was famous for his intense presence and gross attitude. He named his ding-dong Jumbo, and even had a bunch of rules on how his staff were to interact with it. Don't believe me? Well, then just Google Jumbo Rule 34 and you'll see what I'm talking about. Strickland tells Hank that they've got a big client coming down from Boston, much like how Buck has a big client coming out of his ass. And in a smart way to raise the stakes, we're told that if Hank mucks this up, they won't just lose out on some money, but that a dreaded figure will get the account, the propane antichrist, Thatherton. Think I'm exaggerating, do you? Well, get a load of this.
Boy, Thatherton, those are some pretty tough sales quotas, I tell you what.
You want to meet the quota? Take some propane to an old age home. Tell them it's oxygen.
You can't do that to old people.
Aren't you the company man?
Oh, Thatherton, you wacky little scamp, giving old people brain damage. Is there any better way of showcasing someone's total lack of morals than that?
So I guess all of you are as crazy for miniatures as my mom, huh?
I wouldn't use the word crazy. To the miniatures. To the miniatures.
But much like Eustace and the legacy of Cain, Thatherton is a relic of a different age, never allowed to reach his full potential. In this first appearance, he's positioned as the opposite of Hank, someone who cuts corners and behaves immorally with a dangerous product. There is an argument to be made that Thatherton is essentially Strickland without Hank, but for me, he is someone who is defined by his selfish ambition. He wants to be the queen bee and nothing less, whereas Hank is willing to wait for permission to grow. But let's leave this discussion on the back burner, as Peggy is currently admiring America's greatest ugly bastard.
Look at the size of old Ben Franklin's head. He truly was the homely genius.
From here, the show really takes care to say, in bold print, that Hank is confident, super confident, that having an entertainment budget and alabaster pimpmobile is totally unnecessary.
I'm gonna close this deal the same way I always do. A cup of coffee, a slice of pie, and a handshake. And if I hit a snag, pie a la mode.
It's not always the best idea to have your characters yell out how they're feeling, but it works here because if they didn't have him do that, then we might be left wondering, hey, why is Hank dragging his feet so much? There is definitely a bit of pride to his attitude, which makes me happy. Very happy to see.
Oh, I see. Hank suck up to make sale.
Con, I have never had to suck up to make a sale, and I never will.
When the client, Mr. Holloway, arrives, he sets the tone for his character by poking Hank in the side before he even introduces himself, setting him up to be a really, really annoying character.
Put her there, partner.
Now, of course, it goes without saying, but Holloway is a complete ass. He seems to think he's here on some magical tour of Texas instead of coming out to make a frickin' business deal. He strikes me as the kind of fellow who either married into owning a lot of property or inherited it. He's easily distracted and really just wants someone to powder his butt with a poster of the Searchers when everybody knows that Johnny Guitar is infinitely superior. Because as we all know, there was never a man like my Johnny, like the one they called Johnny Guitar. And yet, at the same time, Hank's sales pitch comes off more like a door-to-door salesman's bit who is just trying to use half-assed jokes to try to earn his way into your wallet.
It's kind of interesting. The word customer begins with CU. Well, we don't see you as just another sale, but as a member of our team.
And when he does try to put on a more serious pitch, he sounds like he's just reading off of a script instead of earnestly saying why Strickland is the best place for Holloway to get his product.
Mr. Holloway, I won't beat around the bush. There's 14 reasons to go with Strickland Propane.
Yawn. Come on, Hank. I thought you were supposed to be good at this. How low energy. Bleh. But you know what is good? The devious guitar riff that accompanies Thatherton's arrival.
Well, howdy, Hank.
And while we're praising the audio, let's also give a bit of appreciation to the excellent voice talent in this episode. Burt Reynolds does an amazing job as Thatherton, perfectly straddling that line between charmingly sleazy and intimidating. And wow, you know, I didn't know this until I looked all this stuff up for the script here, but Billy West of all people, Mr. Zoidberg himself, is the one who's giving us Holloway's drawling Boston accent. I never would have guessed.
Oh, jeez, I just wanted to see some boots or spurs or anything. I come all the way from Boston to see Texas, and you don't have real boots or guns or nothing.
Thatherton!
Oh, and I should also mention that Stockard Channing also voices Mrs. Holloway, but she's only in the episode for like 2, maybe 3 scenes before dying of Brown Betty food poisoning, so, you know, R.I.P. to her. How pointless is that? Ugh.
Hi, Mrs. Holloway. Want some cold Frito pie?
As Hank does his best to amuse Mr. Holloway, it becomes increasingly obvious that this sober trip through Texas is not what Mr. Holloway came here for.
Whew, look at all this nothing. What's the suicide rate out here?
Do you mean right here? Because this is where Holloway Hollows is going up.
However, realizing that Thatherton is an omnipresent threat waiting to snatch up Mr. Holloway at the first sign of weakness, Hank begins to stitch together a WEEB world of Texas fancy.
One day my Uncle Fess lost his in a tornado.
Oh, you mean a twister?
Yep, a big Texas-sized twister, I tell you what.
Hank feeds the big Boston baby butt-face strangler his preferred meal of nonsense, telling tall tales and doing out-of-character activities such as exaggerating the details of his drab life. Instead of going over all of these, I just want to mention 2 golden moments. The first is when Hank is taken boot shopping. The clerk, who is just trying to tell Hank the harsh realities of having fat feet, gets verbally impaled by Hank and has a very relatable expression of sorrow.
You might want to try a Birkenstock sandal.
Shut the hell up. But I don't want to scar the carpet.
Who cares about the carpet? You hurt my feelings. You know what else he needs? A hat.
I love that that guy is able to get his little revenge on Hank. Good for him, honestly. I wish I was in his shoes. I wish I could just, for once, finally stand up to somebody who embarrasses me and makes me feel sad. It'll never happen because I'm a coward at heart, but whatever. The other moment I want to address is this thing where an unexpected pair makes a sudden appearance.
Hey, man, look at that rhinestone cowboy, man.
Oh, Lord, not now.
Look, J.I., an Injun and a hillbilly.
Okay, so am I the asshole here for thinking, like, what on earth are these two doing together? And, like, what an even stranger place for them to show up. I mean, clothes shopping of all things? I think, you know what it is? I think Mr. Redcorn needs his glasses because he is clearly hanging out with the wrong sex-crazy blonde. He's gotten them mixed up and is just out and about thinking that he's with his lady, but, sorry, guy, you're on a little gal pal date there with old Boomhauer, so way to go. I mean, yay. There are so many odd things like this in the first 2 seasons, from weird jokes to like strange pairings up, you know, people hanging out that shouldn't, to those horrible forks. It's like stepping into the outer limits. Like, can anyone explain to me why Holloway says that Lyndon Johnson, quote, killed our Kennedy? Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Is that a conspiracy theory that I don't know about? Is this an alternate reality? Where am I? Have I truly begun to explore the outer limits? No? I'm not? Okay, whatever. Anyway, let's put that underrated show behind us, just like the rest of the world did, and get ready for dinner with the Holloways.
You're not wearing that to dinner, are you?
What, you don't like it? I got this pantsuit special for tonight. It's from Frumpy's.
Yeah, don't you still have that bridesmaid outfit you wore to one of Luann's mama's weddings?
Leanne's multiple weddings, eh? Interesting. So you're telling me there's a chance she might be willing to remarry? Anyway, what an utterly strange joke it is to have Peggy's outfit match that of the waitress's. Has anything like that ever happened in the history of the world? It's so surreal. How weird. But even worse than that is that this restaurant boasts the world's longest salad bar, but only the world's second longest sneeze guard. Are we sure that John Schwartzwelder didn't co-write this thing? Cause that joke feels like it's right out of The Simpsons. Thankfully, King of the Hill then quickly reasserts its own brand of down-home stress as Mr. Holloway commits the ultimate Texas sin, wasting meat.
Oh, stick a fork in me. I'm done.
Someone get Luann's mama in here. This man needs a utensil in his face ASAP. Or, if not for that reason, then can we just get her in here for me, please? As if reading my heart's desire for problematic women, Holloway then drags Hank to a seedy strip club, Jug Store Cowboys, where we get a big old booty in our face.
Please, ma'am, I'm trying to carry on a conversation. Yeah, see your rear, very nice.
Oh, I'm just having a little bit of fun with you ladies. I don't actually think that strippers are problematic in any way. If anything, I think they're a little too wholesome and kind, more eager to help a poor soul than any billionaire ever would, and many of them are unlike those bitter Canadian strippers who have been battle-hardened by the barrage of $1 and $2 coins. Make it rain, you say? Well, sir, I say that those poor Canadian girls only ever see hail. The girls down here hold up much better, as proven when Hank goes to the bar and meets Chiffon, who gives us a somber bit of world wisdom.
Why do we do it? Chiffon?
We do it for the money, cowboy. I never made 6 figures a year at the Potato Hut. Soon I'll have enough money to stay home with my granddaughter and her baby.
She is truly a great grandmother. Love her for making sacrifices on behalf of her family. If she or people like her are still out there doing sex work, then I hope that one day she's able to get out of that environment and just post stuff on the internet. That lets you throw out the middleman, reduce risk, you don't have to deal with drunken slobs like Thatherton, you get to work from home, and she'd be able to spend all the time she wants with her family. If only Tammy Duval had been born a few decades later, she wouldn't have needed a pimp at all. You get to make the bag, stay safe, and not have to touch anyone. Ho ho, the strippers and sex workers of the 90s could only dream of such a marvel.
I should be home too, helping my boy with his Sunday school report.
Hey, how about a lap dance?
I always wondered if she was offering him a free lap dance out of sympathy, or if she's just back in work mode and just immediately angling for some cash. It's funny either way. Realizing that it's time to cut the crap and secure the payment, Hank tells Holloway some straight truths. You want propane that doesn't smell like old people breath? You can get it from us. But if you want to run around like Boston's own Dane Cook instead of being like Boston's greatest role model, Leonard Nimoy, then you can go fuck yourself in Paul Revere's house.
Oh, them's fighting words, J.R.
This isn't a John Wayne movie, Holloway.
And this is where we leave Mr. Holloway, for he presumably dies in this bar fight. Just like with Junie Harper, if we never see them again, then it is safe to say that they died on their way back to their home planet. Oh, and the episode concludes with Bobby's report that he's been writing in the oft-forgotten B-plot. All of the lies that Hank's been telling have led Bobby to some rather, interesting conclusions.
I want to thank my dad, especially for accepting me and raising me as his own, even though I was fathered by another man while Mr. Hank Hill was in a Mexican POW camp.
There, you hear that, all you conspiracy theorists who think that Bill is actually Bobby's biological dad? Well, there you go. There's your faint clue that you can latch onto like me onto Leanne Platter's butt. Bobby is surprisingly accepting of this scenario, and I wonder if Joseph would be able to do the same with such grace. But anyhoozle, that's the episode. So why do I like this one, but not the others like the Patriot Act, or however you say it, Patriot Act? I don't know, the fucking one with the cat. Well, I think it's because Holloway is so lost in his own little world that we're sort of just disarmed by his enthusiasm. He makes a great contrast to Hank, who is not down with Holloway's sickness. Just, for the love of God, show, if you're gonna write these episodes where the whole point is to torture us, do not just chuck us into the septic tank like yesterday's clam chowder. Set us up in a nice armchair down there, let us get comfortable, take in the sights and smell, and then slowly start to pump the sewage in. Slowly, it starts to rise and bubble and broil. Will it stop before it reaches our eyes? Our mouths? I don't know. That's the thrill. Oh my God, am I crazy? Yes, I am.
Dang glad to meet you, MF.
The MF stands for
Garuga Mess!
And you know, craziness aside, I feel like this episode really demonstrates the show's continued distrust and exhaustion for those who make and enforce overcomplicated rules like Twig Boy and Junie Harper. Holloway makes Hank earn his business with fun instead of a more typical business arrangement of taking a client who is presumably already paying dues on a trip as a show of good faith and hospitality. If Hank were already, or not Hank, if Holloway were paying Hank already, then it's like, okay, yeah, take him out, show him Texas, whatever, keep him happy. But right now, like nothing's happened. Holloway hasn't done anything. He hasn't given him a penny, so why are we rolling out the red carpet? It's silly. It's just, bleh. But that's only for business deals. If you're a corrupt piece of shit that treats the law and the Constitution like they're a meal ticket, then such gifts could and should be called a bribe. I'm looking at you, Supreme Court. I'm looking at you, Clarence Thomas. Ooh, you bring shame to the name of English majors. I can't believe you're one of my peers. Urgh. Gosh, that grinds my gears.
Oh, give me a break. I don't see why having a girl on the team would ruin it. Did a woman judge ruin the Supreme Court, huh?
Yes, and that woman's name was Earl Warren.
See, look, they bring up the Supreme Court in the next episode. I'm not just rambling here. There's a cohesive thread in here somewhere. Sigh. But this does seem like the kind of topic that would be more appropriate for a South Park episode. Maybe they should cover all this. Maybe they should talk about how numb we've gotten to all the weird stuff going on in the government and how we're just allowing Benedict Arlen himself to run for president again. Blech. But you know, some people worry that King of the Hill wouldn't be able to satirize the political landscape as they once did, but I'm a big believer in the power of humor. Maybe all we need is just one big laugh, one perfectly crafted joke to get us out of this partisan nightmare. Maybe what we really need to do is get our aggression out with some wrestling.
Yes, Connie, no mercy, finish him!
But that's for next time. For now, we can say that this perfectly cromulent episode, titled The Company Man, has indeed been reviewed to death. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at Rage in the Cage 97.
Who's this, Hank? Your district sales manager?
I'm his son, Bobby. I'm waiting for my pie.
I can see you get your sense of humor from your daddy.
He gets a sense of humor from both his parents. Thank you very much.